Hi, welcome to our podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the interesting subject of licensing, because there's been quite a few changes recently.
There has, yeah. There's been quite a few announcements by Microsoft in relation to perpetual licenses, which is your old way. I know you were saying we should probably go through some of the acronyms, so we will do that in a moment. But Microsoft have made some announcements around that and around some of the promotions that get you from a traditional perpetual license, when you used to buy your license, to the new subscription model, that we're all heading in that direction.
Yeah, the change has been, old days used to go and pay a big chunk of money for a license, and then you'd pay every year a maintenance or other names for that.
Yeah, you might know it as your
enhancement
plan or your EP. Or BREP used to be the other one, Business Ready Enhancement Plan. So that's your annual maintenance, which was a percentage of your license value.
And then obviously it's now moved to subscription licensing, paying per user per month.
Yep.
Obviously there's been a change from, there used to be concurrent licensing, so you'd pay for 20 users and you could have up to 20 people.
Any 20 users at one time. Yeah.
But you could have 50 users registered on the system, but only 20 can log on. Now it's all named users that, I've got 20 users, I have to buy 20 licenses.
Correct, yeah, that's absolutely right. So everything's named user, so it's tied to a named user. So it's a bit more restrictive, but you have the ability to scale up and down. If you want to pay for the privilege of doing that monthly or annually, that's your choice. But yes, I think most people are getting used to the subscription model. You do it with Office. Dynamics is happening probably for the last 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. It's really been on the journey, probably.
Anything, yeah.
But we still got a bunch of customers, which we'll talk about, that are still on that perpetual license, that still pay their enhancement plan every year.
In all fairness, paid 16% for many years.
Big investment in that
of their current license value,
protected value, which was what they paid potentially 15 years ago. So obviously, inflation.
Well, it was what the list price was, wasn't it? Because they may have had a discount at the time, but that didn't count for the protected license.
So your enhancement plan is based on the list price of the software that you've got. So if you've added to it over the years, then your enhancement plan will have increased.
The list price at the time you bought it, not the list price now.
But it's always been 16% for a long time, as long as I can remember, 16%. So last year they put it up to 17%.
Which was, that wasn't a 1% increase. It was an increase in 1% from 16 to 17%.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you're paying, it was 6% or something.
Yeah. And then again in October it's going to go up another percent, so it will now be
which is another 6%.
So it's 18%.
And that's the first announcement that Microsoft have made, really.
And do you think
we're seeing
next year it'll go again? Another percent? Do you think it's going to that web licensing software is going to get more expensive?
We've always spoke about this. How did Microsoft start to leverage people on the perpetual to the subscription? And as you said, it was always steady at 16%, very predictable. If that starts to become 17%, 18%, and that trend continues, it's a good reason people say, well, I should look at subscription and see if it works out.
Okay, so why should our customers continue to pay their enhancement plan? What do they get for that?
Well, that's the question, because, you look at a lot of and look, we've got hundreds of customers who still pay enhancement plan, haven't we? So that's the normal thing that, that the older customers do, the customers from 5 years plus back. That's what they're doing, but a lot of those are on versions. BC14 is probably the most prevalent version, but there's a lot of older versions than that.
Yeah,
and all of those are no longer supported. So if there was a change to
we've got lots of customers that are on perpetual licenses on versions that are supported. So if you're on a supported version and you're paying the enhancement plan, then that's giving you access to
so if there was a change to the way that was calculated, or
all the legislative changes, the new versions, you're getting access to
you can still add users, you can still add objects, importantly. So if you want to do some customization,
you can do that. You can do that to non-supported versions as well.
But your enhancement plan is covering all your new releases. And if you're up to date and you're keeping up to date and you intend to do an update every couple of years, which probably an on-premise or a perpetual would do, then paying your enhancement plan isn't.
Every couple of years is probably a little bit of most of them are upgrading on a 4 or 5 year cycle, aren't they?
Not once you're on BC and you're on the 22, 23, 24 cycle.
Absolutely. So, but the
I'm
majority of the
talking
people
about.
paying enhancement plan are probably, that's probably 10-20% who are on a BC, post BC 14 and on premise. That's
There's a
an
big chunk of
exception.
our customers still on BC 14, which is still in support till 2025.
Yeah.
So they've still got that cover till 2025.
Okay.
Is that the right date? Yeah, October 2025.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
So they've got a year and a half.
So they're still in support.
Year and a few months left.
So 2
years.
They need to pay their enhancement plan. But if you're on NAV 2015, 2016, NAV 2017,
2018, anything before BC 14,
you're out of support. So you won't get any access to any updates.
You get security updates. Though,
you might get security update, but not
very, very rare. That we've had one this year.
We've had one,
which is
and
the
it
first
only
time for a long
one
time.
in actually a decade.
if there's any legislative changes, like the making tax digital changes, like the you won't get any of that.
But to stay calm before anybody gets too upset, because and I think we're no different from most of the partners out there, that actually it's the partners who provide 99.9% of the support and the fixes. So if what has always worked will continue to always work. We can, as a partner, we can pretty much guarantee that.
Yeah, but that's paid for by their support fee, not by the enhancement plan.
Yes.
So we had this question, didn't we? And I as to whether these customers on these older versions
what do they get for their enhancement plan?
So I went and got my calculator out and tried to work out, and it does vary customer to customer. But essentially, if you are planning on upgrading to Business Central, whether it's online or on premise in the future, then paying your enhancement plan will allow you to take advantage of the promotions that are available to do that, which we'll talk about later. So what also, if you don't pay your enhancement plan, you cannot add any users, you cannot any objects, you cannot add anything to your license. So if something's fundamental changes in your business, you do an acquisition, you do a merger, then you are stuck. You can't buy anymore.
You're locked to what you have now.
Yeah, so you can't do further development because you can't buy objects, you can't buy users. So I've done some numbers which I think we've published into a blog, and I think that if you are planning to upgrade in the future and you are still actively using your system and developing it, you need to continue paying your enhancement plan regardless of the version.
In the near future.
Because it's giving you the ability to continue adding objects, adding users, the security that if something changes in your business, your software can adapt to it. But also giving you access to the promotions. You will the saving on the promotion is the same as kind of not playing the enhancement plan. So I've done all the numbers, and we'll publish them so they can be seen.
I think the clear recommendation from us.
My personal recommendation would most definitely be to continue to pay unless you are coming off Business Centre, unless you've been acquired. And you're going to come off it anyway. But
let's be very clear about this, Liz. So if you think that you are likely to upgrade in the next 3 years, keep paying your enhancement
100%,
plan.
Yeah.
If 4 to 5 years, you're probably better off because of the flexibility in terms of being able to add objects and all the rest of it. And as part of the upgrade process, unless you're planning on scrapping everything and starting it and doing a complete re-implementation, you will probably need some of that flexibility. So probably if in the next 5 years you think you will upgrade to a later version of Business Central, pay your enhancement plan. If it's beyond 5 years and you have no plan to ever upgrade ever, then probably paying your enhancement plan, you are not going to get anything for it, and that's probably where it should be a situation. Now, if that's the situation you're in, and you're saying I'm not going to update for the next 5 years, I would say, well, that might be your plan, but that might not work out because actually something might change in terms of regulatory changes or so on that doesn't give you that option. And we could have a debate about that. I don't think that's a very good strategy, given the pace of change and the pace of improvement in the product.
I think the license cost almost irrelevant to that discussion.
Yeah, it's like, is that a good thing for your business to not update?
The license cost isn't prohibitive when it comes to upgrading anyway, is it? It's not the cost. The majority of the cost will be the services in that lump anyway, and whether you do that now or in 5 years, the enhancement plan is almost irrelevant.
5 years is a long time, because if you're then restricting yourself from adding users and objects, it's not. Okay, I may not be upgrading, but you can't say that you don't need.
You definitely need a plan B.
My recommendation to our customers, apart from in some very, very specific circumstances, would be to continue to pay it, but to bear in mind that it potentially will increase again, and that actually you are being on an old version is a risk to your business.
If Microsoft keep increasing this percentage too much more, then that 3 to 5 years is going to come down to 1 to 2, and it's very quickly going to tip into a situation where you go, you know what, just cut it and start again as and when you upgrade. So I think Microsoft could be very careful, and that was my feedback, is like, okay, once, twice, I get the fact that wasn't a price increase for a very long time, but it's people are doing the maths now, whereas they didn't used to, and that for me is a bit of should be a red flag to Microsoft, that you can't keep milking this particular cow forever.
It was a bit of an insurance policy, wasn't it? People took it out because of the reasons you said, and that it's still, as you said, it's still for the majority of people the right thing to do. But if you have no plans to do anything with it.
So on the positive, if you have paid your enhancement plan and you're on a older version, there are promotions available for you to be able to move to the version of cloud. So there's 2 promotions. So there's the cloud migration program.
Yep.
I'm trying to mind the acronyms. The cloud migration program is really, really simple. That just gives you 40% discount on online licenses for 3 years.
Yeah. So that's after the 3 years.
Then it goes to retail price, whatever that will be at the time. And they're available. Those prices are available. I won't give them now because I might get them wrong. But
that program is only available for how long?
Right, that program is only available to the end of June. It's available till June. I'm not sure whether that's the beginning of June or the end of June, so we'll check that. Yeah. But that program is coming to an end. But that is the most straightforward. You will also have some flexibility in moving your number of users you've got. Although you won't be able to bring it down, but I don't think. But you can certainly add users and.
At the promotion price,
it is a significant discount.
And can you do that if let's think of upgrading in 18 months?
Yeah, you could, because it gives you dual use. So it allows you to still run a perpetual version, an on-premise version as well. So yes, you could do, but I would probably only take advantage of that promotion if
got a plan to do it.
If you plan to do it in the future.
If you have a serious plan and you're partway through it, I would say,
Yeah.
And that one's been around a while.
That's been around a while, and it comes to an end in June, at some point in June.
So it's 40% discount on what the list price is. The list price has gone up in the last few months as well. I probably should say that. So subscription has increased.
All Microsoft products.
Yeah, so
Microsoft products.
It's not a fixed
Any
price for
products,
3 years, because if the subscription price goes up the retail price, then it will go. But it's 40% discount, so it's a significant saving. And it's if you're going to do it, I would in the next years I would get onto that plan. I think that's gonna save people the most. When I had my calculator out, that was the best promotion and
it's
and also the least complex. Yes. Which then brings us on to Bridge to the Cloud 2, which is the promotion that is now available, which obviously replaced Bridge to the Cloud 1. So Bridge to the Cloud, the sequel.
Which was a sequel.
I'd like to say new and improved, but I'm
going to
not
have more
convinced.
than Fast and Furious franchise on this, aren't we?
Yeah, so Bridge to Cloud 2 is available now and will be available beyond the June deadline for the cloud migration program, but it is slightly more complex.
Slightly.
It's slightly more complex.
Your definition of slightly and mine are in different places.
And also for us as a partner,
and for the customer,
and for the
there's some more restrictions around that. It's Bridge to Cloud 1. You could renew it every year up to maximum of 3 years. This is a 3-year fixed. So once you're on it, it does fix your price. Okay, so they do fix that, but you cannot cancel it. You cannot roll back. You end up going to the cloud at the end of it. So there's no flexibility on it in that point of view. You sign up, it's 3 years.
No going back.
Even if you want to get rid of BC over that time, you're going to have to pay it. There's no get out clause on this.
Does it lock you into the partner?
It locks you into the partner that you're transacting this with. You could move across the support.
So unscrupulous partners are going to try and flog this because they've got guaranteed business.
Well, I think the partner needs to look at it as well. I think most partners that are offering this would have a new agreement for end users to sign, because the responsibility is with the partner as well.
Yeah, just to be clear to all the end users out there, your partner is going to have to pay Microsoft regardless of whether you pay them.
Absolutely.
So if you can have a legal dispute, you can go bust. I mean, if you go into receivership, your partner is still going to have to pay them. And I've seen some of these where the calculation was that the total liability that the partner was taking was close to £1 million, and kind of, some partners are going for the bigger licenses. Actually, we're not prepared to take on that potential liability.
Yeah, or you get the customer to pay up front, which is no real benefit to the customer apart from locking the pricing.
Yeah, I mean, so I think
but they get the discount still there.
They do.
From a Tecman perspective, we need to credit check our customers to make sure that they're going to be around in 2.5 years' time to pay that subscription.
Yeah. So,
I'll be very clear. I said to Microsoft, suddenly Microsoft are making the partners do credit insurance on the customers, and for the organisation that's got a very large bank balance, that seems not very partner orientated.
But a 3-year credit check isn't realistic, because that's a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot can change in that 3 years.
Exactly, yeah. But too right.
3 years.
So as a partner, we've still got some work to do as to how we
offer that,
how we offer it.
Well, it also means that we have to get more lawyers involved than historically we have, because we have to have a watertight legal agreement with the customer that says you cannot wriggle out of this. And again, being a bit blunt, this is only so that Microsoft can declare to Wall Street revenue up front to try and make their numbers look better.
I mean, Microsoft have acknowledged that. I think the NCE program, which is the new commerce experience, which is this area where you lock your pricing in for the customer, which customers love that they know what their price is going to be for either 12 months or 3 years, is good, but it's not very flexible. And
it's written from Microsoft's perspective,
and all
100%.
The way down, and it goes for every single Microsoft product. So you don't get that flexibility, and where some of the smaller value products probably wouldn't be such a risk. Dynamics probably being a higher ticket price, it means that it really accelerates that from a partner's point of view.
But you have to do it for 3 years, though?
Yes.
You can't do it 12
Bridge
months.
to Cloud.
Not
Bridge
Bridge
to
to Cloud. The promotion is a 3 year.
Obviously, NCA,
and to be clear, Liam, the partner's margin means that if one customer goes bust, you've got to sell another 5 customers just to cover the cost of the one that's gone bust.
Yeah, all I was going to say is I agree with you. There's reasons for Microsoft having this, locking people in, makes sense, and if it's right for the customer as well, it's good. They have acknowledged this, and they are looking, or they would like to. I think they would like to get this to a 12-month agreement, which would be sensible.
18 months. This has been, 18 months. We've been having this discussion about NCE now. I'm laughing currently when I'm hearing them talking about we're partner orientated. I think there's a lot of people at Microsoft who would really sincerely like this to change, including all the Dynamics people that I've spoken to. But somebody way up in Microsoft designed it this way and says it can't be changed. So it's part of their core licensing program.
So what we're saying is, because I thought there was a 1-year version as well.
Not for Bridge to Cloud. There is for NCA. So if you were going to buy the software today...
Wait. 3-letter acronym, please.
Bridge to Cloud, you can't do for a year because you'd only get the benefit for a year. You'd only get the 40% discount for a year. So it wouldn't be worth doing it.
If you're transitioning, then it's a 3-year sign-up. If you were going to buy the software from new, then you can do an agreement, a license agreement for 12 months.
So if let's say partners don't offer the 3-year agreement, in effect, come June, there is no promotion.
Yes.
Correct.
Well,
yeah.
Unless the customer pays 3 years up front, which is probably the current answer for
Well, that's. I mean, that's been the answer from some people at Microsoft and some people at the distributors about how you offer Bridge to Cloud 2 as a partner risk-free is get them to pay up front. But then when you take some of the multiples, if you're taking 40, 50 users on a Dynamics license, okay, and you're even at a 40% off, and you times that by 3 years, well, you take your enhancement plan value. That could quite easily be well into 5 figures annually. Times that by 3. It is suddenly paying that out. It's all right for the cash-rich businesses, but actually we don't have a problem giving the credit to the cash-rich businesses.
Yeah,
as long as they're cash poor.
Yeah, so it's the ones that don't have that amount of cash to splash around.
Don't forget as well, that doesn't guarantee that the customer wouldn't have to pay more, because if they increase their user count, their enhancement plan value goes up, and so each year your Bridge to Cloud amount would increase. They've locked your pricing in per user, but if you add more users, then it goes up. So
so if you paid for it 3 years in advance, then you'll almost have these like supplementary invoices.
Yeah, or if Microsoft
very complicated,
keep adding an extra % here and there to your enhancement plan renewal.
I thought it was locked in for 3 years.
No. But if you have to do it on the value of your enhancement plan. So if your
if I sign up to Bridge to Cloud 2 in like now, so for 2023.
If you can find a partner who will offer it.
2024, okay, that Microsoft put the enhancement plan percentage up to 18%, then the Bridge to Cloud cost would increase because of that? Or?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
But if you add... No, I don't think it does. No.
I mean, it did on Bridge to Cloud 1. It did to Bridge to Cloud 1.
Bridge to Cloud 1 was different though.
But this is where it's... I mean... Again, being clear, I think this is insane. They've made it so fiendishly complicated that every time you talk to somebody, you get a different answer.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 4 people in here that have been, with 4 people in here been doing it a long time, and even we can't agree.
And it's so how on earth is an end customer that deals this once in every 12 months looks at it? How on earth are they supposed to understand what is right for their business when this is so complicated? So I'm sorry, whoever designed this within Microsoft, I know who that is, I won't name them, but I think, and I understand that it's a compromise and they're restricted in terms of what the Microsoft systems will do and so on. But hang on, I've got to say, fail, because this is just, and I think I suspect a lot of customers are just going to go, you know what,
go to market.
If I don't really understand the whole kind of what it is and what the risk is, I'll stick in what I'm doing, and that's going to be completely counterproductive to what Microsoft wants, because they could have customers who'll say, the risk-free, I won't get fired or I won't get told off for doing what we've always done. I'll stay there, and that's
exactly
that's what they're going to do. They would, wouldn't
they? So let's just get on the cloud migration. So the cloud migration program, which we can still have to the end of June, that's really straightforward.
Take that, because that's straightforward.
That's really straightforward. It's just 40% discount.
The T's and C's
and it's completely then unrelated to any increased enhancement plan. It doesn't matter how you can add new users. It's just so much.
I never thought I'd say this, but I wish Paul White would go back to Microsoft, which is a really strange. For those who on the podcast who don't know who Paul White is, he's the guy who used to run Dynamics SMB at Microsoft, and actually for the last few years he's been chair of our biggest competitor in the UK. So Paul is a guy I know, but he came to, I think it was. It might have been Poznan, I can't remember, but he introduced napkin pricing for NAV at the time, was it, where there was just, essentials and premium, and there was only 4 prices, so you could write it on the back of a napkin, as he termed it. And somebody at Microsoft needs to do exactly the same for the cloud migration program. It needs to be so simple, which is what the one we're about to lose is, because unless it's that simple, volume is going to be, we're going to struggle to get volume, and that's what they want, that's what we want, but we're blocked by silly programs.
The other thing they announced about perpetual licensing, we should say, and I've checked it so the dates are right now, you won't be able to buy perpetual licensing on a new sale from October 25. So if you've already got perpetual, you can add users and bits and pieces to it continually. But if somebody wanted perpetual...
That's interesting, because that's the same...
But nobody would...
That's the same date as end of support for BC14. It's a bit like...
I mean, to be fair, when was the last time we sold a perpetual license?
Yeah, it's very rare. It's like one in a blue moon, and it's normally very specific. Someone wants to have that. It's 1 in 3 or 4 years that I can think of.
So the one instance I can think of is where you've got a group of companies and they sell off one of the subsidiaries, or there's a management buyout or whatever, and they need to split up the systems. And effectively, they want to take one of the companies out of the group and put it on a standalone. And it's going to be situations like that where that is problematic. I don't see, I don't see that anybody coming to Dynamics from scratch. Yeah, my advice.
Just have to buy that new
my advice for ages would be buy SaaS. But if they are on premise now and their ownership structure changes, I wonder whether Microsoft are going to have exceptions.
They can still have on-premise. They can have on-premise. It's just they can only license it on a subscription.
Oh, dual use.
So in that example you've just given...
Yeah, but that subscription license, the dual use, you can only get the current version. So if they're on NAV 2018...
Yeah, but we can't cut one of those anyway. So even if we bought a new perpetual license today, we can only cut it for the latest versions.
So you've got to stay on the thing. You've got to stay on the cycle.
So anybody who's got a group, and I saw a stat yesterday that said that 40% of Business Central implementations have some aspect of multi-company international, or some multiple companies in their setup. All of those, any management buyout, any change in ownership structure is blocked as of today.
Well, they should. If they're a big enough company, they should be up to date anyway. So
yeah.
That doesn't follow, Matt, because the bigger companies are slower to get up to date.
If they're running on NAV 2015 and they're out of support, they got bigger concerns.
They got problems.
Yeah, it's true. So
that's one of the reasons.
There is some good news at Microsoft.
Yeah, give us some good news.
So the good news,
licensing podcast with good news.
Let's finish on a high.
So they also allowed for like the Dynamics family. So we predominantly talk about BC in our podcast. We do another one around CRM, I'll call it, with Jason. But what was always a pain if we were looking to sell a complete solution where the customer needed both, was you pay for your BC licenses and then you had to pay for your CRM licenses, and they were both quite a high ticket price. They announced probably a couple of years ago now, maybe a little bit longer, that you could have an attached license. So you could attach a CRM license if you already had a BC license, and they would give you a really nice discount on that. But you could only get the more limited version of CRM Sales, which was Sales Professional.
Yep.
And there's loads of stuff that we showcase, Microsoft showcasing, I want that. You need to go to the enterprise version of the software.
I mean, Professional was such a hobbled, because they didn't. There's two ways they can kind of restrict licensing. They can restrict it by restricting the number of users, or kind of the size that it grows, the size of the data or whatever, and they can chop the functionality. And they did some chops on functionality for Professional, which just meant that nobody could use it for long. I think it was difficult to stick on it. It was difficult to implement, even sales enhancement without hitting the boundaries of what Professional would cope with.
So they've obviously acknowledged that, and they've now allowed to attach the Sales Enterprise. I think it's £16 rather than the $80.
$20 I heard, so £16.
£17. Compared to $80 something.
It was $15, so that would have been £12 or £13 attachment.
Yeah, but if you bought Enterprise...
Oh, yeah, sorry.
The list price of buying Enterprise, you ran the 70 to 80.
So it's a big saving. Now, so if I've got NAV 2015 on an old perpetual basis and I want to implement Sales Enterprise...
You can't. Well, you've got to license it separately because you can't attach to an old perpetual license.
So, but I could go on the cloud migration promo... Till June. As long as I do that before June.
Yes.
I said, I'm just trying to tie it all together. and then I could have the attached license.
You can attach, yeah.
So you have to be on a...
You have to be on a Business Central subscription
license. Business Central subscription
and it's worse
license,
than that.
Not a perpetual license.
Correct.
To be able to take advantage of the attached license.
And it's worse than that, because
finishing on good news, James.
Yeah, no. This is good news, but there is a wrinkle here, okay, that you need to understand. Okay, so you've got you've got sales enterprise, say, that you pay, which is how much, Liam?
About 80 odd pounds. It was just
Okay, and you've got Business Central Essential, which is how much?
£60 now, roughly.
Okay, so Microsoft say you attach this to the highest price license. So in that, you'd have to pay 80 odd pounds for sales, and you would then get for your
BC
16
Essentials.
For your BC Essentials license, you would pay £16
yeah.
as an attach, because the attach has to be
What about
to the highest
if
value.
you're on
premium?
What if you're on a promo?
I don't know.
So if you're on a promo, I think it's the retail price of the biggest one.
Yeah, I think it would have to be.
It
Yeah.
is.
So can you have both?
You can have both, as in what essentials?
So if you're on a promo, if you're on a cloud migration promo or a bridge to cloud,
Yes.
can you have an attached license as well? So basically have multiple.
Yes, you can.
I don't know about bridge to cloud, but we could have to check.
So okay, just
Because when we place the order onto the NCE, New Commerce Experience System, in effect, we have to say, for the attached license, we have to say what it attaches to, and that has to be on.
Yeah, it's like a lot of promotions that whatever you buy, and you buy for the top, the higher price, and you get them. So if you're on if you're on Business Essentials Premium, then at the
Can I just clarify? If you've got Business Central Premium, then your sales enterprise can be attached to that. Okay, because premium is higher than sales. It has a higher cost, retail cost, than sales enterprise. If you have Business Central Essentials, you pay full price for sales enterprise, and then you can do your essentials as an attached license to
right.
that.
Okay, I understand. Okay, so
What happens if you're on a 3-year agreement with that Business Essential? Can it bring the price down?
Yeah, well,
I think it's on the list. It's on the list. I think it's on the list price, but they haven't actually put we should caveat this that they haven't published the actual license pay agreement details on the website yet.
Well,
they announced it at a conference with some headlines.
Yeah.
But until you ever read as we've just found out looking at Bridge to Cloud 2, where I've got 12 pages of.
From memory,
So I've got a customer.
I was at that conference. From memory, it comes in from July the 1st.
Yeah, so I'm sure something's going to be published.
Which is Microsoft's new financial year.
I guarantee that I'll have at least one customer ask me this. Already got BC licenses, already got CRM licenses. Their current agreement, NCE, was on a 12-month. It comes to an end in July.
Do they?
Can they? Is it new customers only, or can they have?
No, I think it probably would be the end of your agreement, just knowing how NCE works.
So if you've got existing BC and CRM togetger,
you'll be able to take advantage
of this, which is brilliant for our existing customers. Yeah. Really, really good.
And it might, most will be able to upgrade either on the.
And actually, for some of them,
I think I need to get my calculator out again, but.
Wait till the PDF comes out with the details.
I mean, I'm Bridge to Cloud. If I do the Bridge to Cloud migration, get my 40% off.
Cloud migration promo.
Sorry, cloud migration program, and get my 40% off, and I'm Essentials now. Can I change the premium?
I don't know if I want to say this because we're on a podcast and it feels like we're getting more confused. The transition promo is CSP, not NCE. Now, if the new attach is for NCE agreements only, then the promo won't work. It's been going through my back of my mind for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
Did I want to throw anything else in? So I don't know. Until we see the details, I don't know.
Okay, so but it's worth
exploring. If you want normal pricing,
this is where, for each customer, I think everything we've talked about as well, we can give these broad brushstrokes of advice and so you can take advantage of it. But actually...
Give us a call.
Yeah, talk to your account manager and let us work out.
Don't, give us a call and tell us what you want to do, but then have sympathy for us, because if the last half hour has taught any customer it's anything, okay, it's wow.
I don't know what we're talking about.
It's going to. This is why sometimes it can take days or weeks to get clarification, because going to somebody at Microsoft and getting them to clarify, they don't know.
Yeah,
is my impression.
That's very true. That's very
true. Also,
so
customers, you should know, we do not get mega margins on this.
No.
This is not how business will grow.
it is getting to the point where it's kind of like, do you really want to do this? Because Microsoft, if anybody at Microsoft's listening to this, you are putting your partners in such a position where some of us are going, licensing, wow, it's a pain in the arse, to be blunt, and it's so complicated. And every customer you're putting the quote out there and you're going, I really hope that's right, because it's really not easy to be 100% certain that all the ifs, buts and maybes are covered in every situation. It's really tough. So customers, please have some sympathy for partners, because if they're taking a few weeks to get the quotation back to you, it's because probably nobody is being clear to them about exactly what the terms and conditions are, and they're super difficult. And if you contravene one of the T's and C's on this, Microsoft have zero flexibility about what they will do.
I've got a question. Which one of the four of us goes to prison if we get all this wrong?
Well, we don't. It's not criminal, but what it is, it can be mega expensive, because as Liam said, the margins are super small. Microsoft has zero sympathy for a partner who gets any of this wrong. So, we've got to go out and sell 15, 16 customers to recover the one where we got it wrong and ended up having to foot the bill. And as soon as you hit commit on that web page for the order, you're pretty much in. You have zero chance to undo.
A few days, but you wouldn't have uncovered. You got it wrong within a week, which is what they give you to.
Come on, you tick the I accept the terms and conditions.
Yeah, I know.
Of course, it should be written.
And by the way,
I think we accept the terms and conditions.
Microsoft's got so many lawyers that, in effect, your chances of getting out of it are zero. So
I'd love to get someone from Microsoft on. One of the license specialists. I know you know some of the team.
They won't.
Do you think they'll dare?
No.
Well, if they want to come on and explain how they've done that, it would be great. I think it would be useful to get from their side.
They don't turn up to the conferences, Liam. They don't meet the partners in private behind closed doors anymore, because I think they know that somebody, Satcher needs to be brave enough to rip this up and say, start again. He did that with NCE. That was the whole idea with NCE. But the problem is they involved more lawyers and less partner-focused people from the beginning. And the lawyers just wrote it, close this loop, close this loop. This will be good for our numbers for Wall Street. And it was all focused. So the idea that the licensing program is partner-focused now is for the birds.
Well, we were going to finish on good news.
The attached license, if you qualify for it, the attached license and being able to have enterprise is great news. Yeah. And that's the first, that a lot of customers will take. Even some people who have both products right now should be able to take advantage of that. And, it's another reason for up to date, because if you're on SaaS, chances are you're on some program that ought to, sooner or later, by the time your term ends and all of this, will be able to get you, and potentially you're going to save quite a bit of money. For the first time, Microsoft are truly giving something where they reward loyalty to Dynamics in one area with cheaper licensing costs in another.
I think the underlying message, I would say, it has been difficult. If anyone's made it through this long,
I was going to say, well
done. But I think Liz and James said this a couple of times. Get in contact. We have to look at each individual case to work out what we can take advantage of, where we can benefit from Microsoft, where we can put you on the right promotion. But each one is individual, and once we do the financials and get Liz's calculator out, that's when we can tell you this is the best way to go. And that's it. So. It's hard to have a general
works.
answer.
So actually, if you're thinking of going to the cloud, do it in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. Think of the June deadline.
And also, it's a real shame, that the cloud version now is
so good. The
it's
product is so
great.
good,
the product is so good. It is getting better and better. That this should not be a barrier for people to be able to go there.
Yeah.
And to be able to...
Well, you were telling me a customer yesterday that migrated to the cloud last weekend. And how smoothly has that gone?
The migration process is straightforward. The update process is manageable now. You are getting constant improvements. It isn't...
The performance is...
great piece of it. Do not let this be a barrier. Talk to us. Let's work out the best way.
Because actually the simplest licensing is for SaaS once you're on, I would say.
Yeah.
It is. if anybody who's only ever been SaaS is listening to this, forget all of it, because actually,
apart from the attached
the attached, yes.
But everything else has been the transition to get you from perpetual.
So the legacy customers,
stuff, Microsoft have not made a great job.
And you get some Power Platform licenses thrown in as well.
Yeah, and like, you know,
just thinking about it, if you've got CRM enterprise licenses already, and
if you're a CRM user,
and you're on an older version of Nav, you might be better off not
migrating,
not using a promo,
just taking the attach.
So again, that's another option that we need to bring in. So each individual customer is going to be different. But
and actually,
I will make it my mission to make sure that each customer has the best deal that they can have.
But that
with the flexibility that they need. What we don't want to be doing is tying people into something that they're going to regret in 12 months' time. So we need to ensure a certain level of flexibility, but. And there's a trade-off then, isn't there, between that? It's like anything. It's like buying an airfare, isn't it? If you want it flexible, you're going to pay probably a little bit more for it. So we need to assess that and work through that with each individual customer.
I mean, there's a whole new market, isn't there? You know, customers out there who are using Dynamics CRM, sales engagement, call it service management, and so on. You can attach Business Central now for £16 a month.
Which is significantly
per user. So do you have to match the number of users?
If they've got on their user account on Azure AD, if they've got a CRM CRM enterprise license, then to attach a BC license is £16 a month.
That makes sense. You have to match the CRM users, match the amount of users you got on BC.
No, I don't believe you do.
So don't you just go and buy one enterprise license and then you get BC at?
No, because you could only attach one BC license.
For a loophole, Matthew Woodhouse.
Well, that was the question.
No. It's like you can only do an attached license where the user's named user already has the premium license.
So to be clear on that, though, so if you've only got 10 CRM enterprise licenses, you've got 30 BC. Only 10
it does depend.
Only 10 of those can be at that.
Depends on the balance.
It's not. It has to be the same 10 as have
people.
CRM.
Yeah, but you can have then another 20 just normal BC licenses.
You could go and pay the full price.
Which is why each customer will be different. So I think
licensing optimization, that's where partners really have a massive opportunity to add value, don't they? Because anybody who's listened to the last 45 minutes understands that actually partners really need to know their stuff and stay current with this, because every month there's another announcement, another licensing guide comes out, and it's almost partners need to have somebody dedicated just to understanding the kind of complexity of this and that's where they should be reviewing every customer's arrangements at least every 12 months to say, is this still right for this customer?
You don't want to be on like a 12-month NC agreement, which is what we've hopefully covered already, and then find you've suddenly rolled into another 12-month and you've missed out a better option. So you should have that in your calendar to review, probably 90 days before, just in case. Again,
in the same way as, your insurance agent gives you kind of, well, this is the insurance you need now. And kind of, that evolves on, and your accountant comes and says, well, the tax rules have changed and this is what you should be doing. In effect, your systems partner should be looking at your licensing and going, right, this is, I think that given what you need, what changes do you want, but also and foresee, and advising you correctly around your licensing. I think that's a big part of where partners add value these days. The difficulty is that the complexity of it makes it really difficult to do. And, as I've already made the point several times, the margins make it also difficult to justify having that dedicated person. But if you don't have them, you're very unlikely to stay on top of it.
So I think we're about done.
Yes,
it's been an intense one.
I need a drink after that. I've got to be honest.
Yes, it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
Can we have a shot of whiskey now, please?
Yeah.
It's like
thank you for staying. If you've stayed all the way, you might need to go and watch it again to
understand
it fully.
We should have a special word now, and if anyone can send us that special word,
you know sometimes you get the documentaries on the telly, and they come up with the end with the helpline of if you've been affected by this podcast, ring this number. The reason why
I'll be the first one to ring, I think.
So, I think in summary, if you want to understand it more, how it affects you, just give us a call. Speak to your account manager. We'll see what we can do. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.